Hi everybody, welcome to OBS Obsessed, the show all about OBS Studio. My name's John Lacey. Today on the show, I'm going to be answering your OBS Studio questions. So if you've got any questions, throw them in the chat. We are going out live to all the various places. So do say hi if you're watching live, and if you're watching the replay, thank you so much for being here. Today, let's talk about upgrade considerations, let's talk about plugins, video and audio, all of the things. And like I said, if you have a specific OBS Studio question, let me know in the chat what that is, and I will do my best to try and answer it. Hello to reluctant creators. Okay, I'm having a little issue with my chat overlay. Let me just see if I can suss this out really quickly. But he says, greetings to all. Great to have your company today. I'm actually using a different, in fact, let me just go into studio mode really quickly and just see if I can figure this out. Okay, cool. All right, let's go back over here and let's turn off studio mode. And there we go. There are the comments, and I hopefully can turn that on and off. Okay, awesome. It's been a little while since I've done this particular show, and a little while since I've done any kind of streaming, except for last week because I have been unwell, but I am feeling a lot better. So let's just get stuck into some OBS stuff, because that's how we roll on this show. So this is obsproject.com. This is the official website of OBS Studio, which is free and open source software for video recording, live streaming, and really changing how you show up on webcam in all kinds of apps. So you'll see that version 32.0.1 is available for Windows and Macs. It's still 32 for Linux. This is a new version of OBS, and I guess I want to sort of talk about this a little bit and our upgrade considerations, which we'll get to in a second. I am sort of running a separate portable version of OBS so I can talk you through some of these things. And during the week, I did upgrade to this particular version. I have installed my plugins, and I'll talk about that as well. But essentially, one question I did have during the week was about audio. So I'm going to head over to my portable version of OBS, which is just over here. It's a very black on black screen. If you do want to actually change how this visually looks, you can go to File Settings, and we can go to Appearance, and we actually have all different kind of styles that we can choose from. So if you do prefer something a little bit lighter and brighter, you can do that as well. But I tend to stick with the defaults. If I remember which one that is, that one here. Okay, cool. So first of all, the question I had during the week was about using the Rodecaster Pro with OBS Studio. So this is essentially the default the scene collection, if you like. I just want to talk about this in audio kind of generally before we get too far ahead. So the first thing I want to draw your attention to, and this is what it looks like out of the box. So we have two audio options. We have desktop audio, and we have the mic or auxiliary. And one of the easiest ways to get started if you do have if you have an audio input device is just go to the properties of this one. That's the mic. Click on that little hamburger icon and go to properties, and you can just specify a device. So if you do have a Rodecaster and you just want the stereo mix, you can go Rodecaster Pro Stereo, and you'll see that is bouncing around at the bottom of my screen to indicate that I do have the audio. So that's certainly one way of working. The other thing that we can do, and again, you have a few different options, and I don't want to overwhelm you with too many options, but if you were to come in and actually add an audio source, so you can go to Audio Input Capture, just create a new source with a little plus sign. We can give this one a name. I'll just call it Rodecaster. We can go and pick the Rodecaster here. And again, you'll see that we have another audio input device in our Rodecaster section. The thing about this is you need to make sure you include this Rodecaster audio in every single scene that you want to use it. And in some ways, this is kind of the trade-off between these two things, because if you select the mic, you could have this in just every scene by default. Whereas if you add the source, if I create a second scene, and we'll just call it scene 2 because that's nice and easy, I can go and add in the audio input capture again. But it's really important that we actually select the one that we've already added, because for the Rodecaster specifically, this actually isn't a big problem. We could create a new one, but especially if you're using a video camera, web camera, we want to reference the same web camera because often they won't work unless we do this. So instead of going create new, we're going to go add existing, and we're just going to select Rodecaster. And we can just do that. That's great. That's fine. So you have those couple of options. I guess the thing, I'm just going to remove the Rodecaster audio from here. This actually really doesn't relate too much to this specific question, but it is a rant I'm going to go down anyway, so forgive me. But my biggest problem with these default settings is we have this thing called desktop audio. And I don't like desktop audio. I think it's a problem. Because by default, it's kind of capturing it should be capturing all the audio that's on my computer. Which sounds like a good, simple thing in theory. But if you're running your stream and you happen to have it open in Twitch or on YouTube in the background, the first thing OBS is going to do is it's going to hear that in the background and it's going to play it back, and you're going to have this really awful audio loop. So I dislike this with a passion. I would go in and actually mute this. And if you do want to bring in audio from specific apps, you can actually go up and you can go to the application audio capture, which is technically still in beta. But essentially what you can do here is you can go and select an option that you want to get the audio out of. And I probably don't have a great example of this right now, but the great thing about that is you can say, hey, include the audio from this specific app. And there is also an option for that if you want to capture your screen and the audio, which is to go to window capture. So you come in here and you select the window that you want to capture. And again, I will just go with the clock that's always in the background of my streams. And there's also that option to capture the audio there as well. So I'm really curious what other people think of the desktop audio, because I know it's an attempt to really simplify things for people, but it makes me so nervous. I think it's so easy to get wrong. And I think it can be a bit of a problem. So just be a little bit careful with that one. The other thing I did want to mention too, and again, I'm going to have to play with some things in my physical environment to make this happen, is that depending on the version of the Rodecaster you've got, so I've got the original Rodecaster Pro. If you've got the Rodecaster Pro 2, there are actually even more routing options that you can use in their software, so it's definitely worth checking that out. But if you do have a device that supports ASIO, which I think from memory stands for Audio System Input Output, we can actually bring in different channels from some of these devices. So I've been playing with a plugin during the week called ATK Audio. And if I bring in the ATK Audio source mixer, it actually it gives us a whole bunch of settings, and I really haven't had a chance to play with many of these. So what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to ignore this entirely, because the audio sources it's actually referencing here are specifically the OBS Studio ones. And that's not really what I'm looking for right now. But if I go to the filters for this one, and I go to the audio filters, we do have some options for hosts and plugins and audio devices. And it's been a little while since I've done this, so I'm going to just see if I can recreate this in real time. I think it's the device IO. Okay, yes. All right. So essentially, and that's filled my screen in a way that doesn't look very attractive at all, so I will just resize that really quickly. But essentially, the device input output here, we've got a section here called device settings. So I open the device settings. I can sort of specify the audio device type I want to work with, and I can also reference the input. So now if I go to microphone Rodecaster Pro multi-channel, it'll actually give me all these different channels. So what I'm going to do, and I think it's probably channel 14. We'll find out in a second if I remember this correctly. And we can potentially go in and see these settings as well. But what I'm going to do, I'm going to close out of that. I'm going to close out of here. We've got the ATK audio source mixer. And now what I'm hoping will happen is if I press a button on my sound pad, that hopefully you guys will, you will actually see this one move. There we go. So we're just a rim shot sound effect, but you can see it's capturing just the sound pad. And again, if you're a beginner, you're probably like, why would that even be useful? But the great thing about this is that we can potentially do different things with these audio inputs. We can record them separately. We can put them in different scenes. One of the great things, if we go to the audio mixer here, we click on the 3 dots, we can actually go to our advanced audio properties. And we have a lot of different options in here. We've got the ability to change the volume, change the balance, make it mono, all of the things. We've got our audio monitoring options. This is really quite useful because there'll be audio that you want to hear yourself, and that's this monitor only mute output option. There are things that you don't want to hear, but maybe the stream needs to hear, where you go monitor off, and then you've got things that you want to hear and the audience should hear as well. So we've got monitor and output. But the great thing about this is we do also have these tracks. So generally speaking, if you're a beginner, don't even worry about these tracks. It's not worth worrying about. Often my advice in the past has been just to select all of them and just call it a day. And that seems to be what it defaults to anyway. But now, that might get a little tricky because the thing I'm finding these days is if I do that, I will have 6 copies of the same audio in my video recordings, which can be annoying. But the great thing about this is we can potentially put different audio sources on different tracks. So you can just imagine, maybe I've got my mic. Let's just imagine that track 1 is going to be everything going live to the stream. So we want all of them selected there. But maybe track 2 should just be my audio. So I'll deselect the others. Maybe track 3 is just my sound effects. So again, if I'm in a situation where I've done a live or a recorded video and I want to actually go away and edit those things separately, I can do that as well. And let's just imagine that we're using the desktop audio. I definitely wouldn't, but let's just pretend that that's on track 3. So once that's there, we can go in and potentially work with these different things. And like for my purposes, I'm actually going to go into the properties, not the properties. I'm going to rename this and just say sound pad. Just so I know what that is. So there are a few different options. And again, I'm so nerdy and I don't really want to overwhelm beginners, but especially if you do have the Rodecaster Pro 2, they have their own software that you can actually route all these things differently. And in that case, if you do have I wish I could remember what the names of that software were, but somebody asked me about it during the week and I sort of looked it up, and I do have, I think the Unify app is one of them. In fact, what I might do, let's just go back here. Let me just see if I can find these really, really quickly. So the Rode apps, and again, this is super nerdy. If you're a beginner, you just need to get started. Just grab that stereo mix and add it where you need to. It's all good. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to head over to the Rode website really, really quickly. All right, let's go back here. So the apps that are kind of relevant here, I believe, are Unify. And I think it's Connect. I'll find out in a second when these load. So Unify, you can essentially create all these different virtual audio outputs and just decide what things you want to add to them. And they can actually be a combination of physical things coming out of your Rodecaster and also some software-based things. So you can essentially just route whatever you like there. It's really cool. And again, I think Rode Connect is... maybe it isn't the other one. Unlock the full potential. No, so it's probably not Rode Connect. There is another version, but to be honest, Unify will probably get you where you need to be if that is something that you're interested in doing. So I just wanted to mention that because that's a question I got during the week. Another question I got, and I did a version of this during the week to try it out, but I kind of want to explore it even more. So what we're going to do, this is version 32.0.1. And I just want to say, like, this actually does have the fabled plugin manager. Just in case you are playing with this at home, essentially the browse and the update section seem to be placeholders, so don't worry about that too much, but it will actually give you a list of the plugins that are enabled. If you do find that one is breaking your system, you can sort of go in and click on that. You deselect it. It says OBS must be restarted to apply plugin changes, so you can do that. But that's a really cool feature. But essentially what I want to do, I'm just going to bring in my vertical docs. So this is the Atom vertical plugin. If you've been here a hot second, you'll see that I use this all the time, and I really love this. So this is a free download from atom.tv. It essentially gives you a second canvas. It's the one that's behind my head here. And we've got the vertical and the horizontal here together. So what I might do, just to make this a little bit more obvious, is I'm going to put in a color source. And I'm just going to let it default to whatever color it is. So I'm going to do that for the horizontal scene, and I'm also going to do that for the vertical scene. So we'll create a new one. Here, in the vertical, we will need to sort of adjust these parameters a little bit because it doesn't fill the screen. But essentially, you've got these two white boxes now. And the great thing about this is that we can essentially design a vertical and a horizontal version of our stream, of our video, of our presentation in the same way. So the question essentially, and this was from a Facebook group during the week, was... I kind of asked this person some follow-up questions, and I haven't heard back from them, but I guess what they were asking was they sort of had vertical slides and horizontal slides, and could they sort of sync those things together with a keyboard shortcut? And I guess the short answer is yes, you definitely can, but there's kind of a different variation on this theme I want to explore a little bit. So if you're not familiar, if we go to add in a image slideshow, so we go to the sources list, we hit the plus sign, we go to image slideshow, and I'm just going to call this image slideshow. I'm not going to rename that. What I am going to do, I'm just going to move this to the other screen. I'm going to find some images for my slideshow. I really need some better examples, but it is what it is. Just find that on the place that I like to store things. And essentially, these are literally just image files. So if you've got something that's like PowerPoints, just export them as PNGs is usually the best way to go. I'm just trying to find my... Okay, cool. We'll do these ones today. All right. So this is something I made a really long time ago after an interview with my my former co-host Sam Proof about Qt Avalanche. So I guess if you're not familiar with the image slideshow, it has a couple of different modes. One is automatic, which you're seeing right now. It's just flicking through those slides, and you can adjust the speed and the transition style there as well. But I'm going to go to manual. So this is use hotkeys to control slideshow. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to go down and create another image slideshow in the vertical section. Can actually create a new one. I'm actually going to use the same images. I don't have any vertical images designed for this purpose, so we'll just add the same ones again, and you can use your imagination a little bit. But I think the point here is just simply that you certainly could redesign these to fill this entire space if you wanted to. The Atom vertical plugin, although by default it is vertical, you can make it any kind of rectangle or square that you like, so you could adjust these. These could actually be to horizontal. You could adjust the main canvas to be vertical. You could make them both squares. You could do whatever you like. So essentially, we've got our image slideshow and our image slideshow 2. And again, for my purposes, I've actually just put these, put one of these in the vertical and one in the horizontal. So if you do want to actually move between these slides via a keyboard shortcut, go to the File menu, go to Settings, and we want to find Hotkeys. And if I type in the word next, you'll actually see that we get our next slide option for both image slideshow and image slideshow 2. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go Control Shift M. Nope, that's something I've already used. Control Shift N. And I'm going to click, that's in the first one. I'm going to click into the second box and do the same keyboard shortcut again. Here you will see a little warning sign saying that this is already used. In this case, this is actually exactly what we want. And you could do this also for previous. So if you wanted to go previous slide and we go maybe Control Shift B for both of those, again, you'll get that same warning, but that's fine. And now if we were to do this presentation and I was going to talk about different things and I go Control Shift N, it'll go through those side by side. All right. So I guess the part of the question I didn't really understand was that even though they were sort of, it sounded like they had a vertical use case, and I recommend this plugin, and I told them about this plugin. I think what they were actually describing was, would these things go together if they were in two different scenes in the same, you know, horizontal, for example, collection. So let's give this a go. Let's actually go and add in our source. We're going to go in and add our image slideshow in. Let's actually add in the existing one. So we'll get image slideshow 2. What I'm going to have to do though, just to show you if this is going to work or not, because I really don't know and I haven't tested this yet. I'm going to right click on the scene itself and I'm going to go to Open Scene Projector. And I'm going to, I just wonder if I can do this as a windowed version, but I guess we'll find out in a second. I'm going to try this monitor. We'll find out together if this is going to work. Okay. All right, cool. So basically what I did, I actually moved this to a different screen, and if you right click on this, you've got full screen options. So if I go full screen, it'll fill the content, but I did also have this windowed version. And I think this used to be, actually, when you right clicked on here, you'd actually get two different window options here, but essentially it's just one at the moment, which is fine. Okay, so what I want to do, in fact, I might even just drag this over here. I might resize it though a little bit so we can see this a little bit better. So this is essentially our two scenes. And I might even just right click on this and say always on top, because I don't want to move this when we lose it. So these are two different scenes in the same horizontal version. It doesn't have that that sort of gray background. It's got the black one. But again, let's just try it and see if this works. So Control Shift N. Yep, they definitely work side by side. So again, if you do have two image slideshows that you do want to keep in sync, just keep in mind that, you know, you got to make sure that they're both on the same slide to start with, because that'll potentially be a problem, but you can go back, you can go forward. And if you have that shared option, that will definitely work. So that's a good one. I didn't even know if that would work, but it was good to test that out today. So hopefully that's useful, and I might clip this out and share it with that person. All right, so let's, this is OBS Obsessed. I'm answering OBS Studio questions. If you've got any, leave them in the chat. Great to have your company today. Don't forget to like and subscribe, which doesn't seem to be working either. Isn't that joyful? It just goes to show you, if you haven't actually, if you haven't used some of these things in a little while, they might be a little bit temperamental. Let me just try that again. Okay. Not really sure what's happening there, but I'll do it manually. All right, well, I'm not really sure what that's about, but it is what it is. All right. And now I'm distracted playing in studio mode, but let's not worry about that. All right, let's check in with the comments. Hi, Jerry. Great to have your company today. I realize it's quite late in your part of the world, so thank you for being here. So I'm answering OBS Studio questions. I guess the thing that I kind of mentioned this last week, but I think it's worth revisiting this week is, and what do you know, like and subscribe suddenly worked. How about that? Maybe I just needed to not dwell on it so long, but I guess I just want to talk about OBS Studio 32 because this is the new sort of major release. And again, if you're interested in this, you can definitely check that out over at obsproject.com. You can download this here. What I haven't actually upgraded my main installation just yet because I'm not necessarily an early adopter when it comes to technology. I kind of like them to iron out the bugs a little bit. But what I have done during the week is I went to the download tab and I've downloaded a zip version of this and I've set up this portable version. So this is essentially what I've been playing with today. So this is 32.0.1. Again, I've actually sort of manually copied in my plugins. So again, a lot of OBS plugins have installers, which is really good because it makes your life easier, but I have found that a number of these installers won't let me install this to a portable version. So what that essentially means is I've had to unzip a bunch of zip files and physically move files into here, but I've got all these plugins. They seem to be working okay. That's a really good question, Reluctant Creators. So Reluctant Creators asks, do you think version 32 flushed the cache for your overlay triggers? I don't know, although the version I'm streaming from actually isn't 32. It's still 31.1.2. So I don't think that's quite what it is. I'm not really sure, although I definitely did upgrade the Stream Deck software during the week, which I think is specifically designed for 32, so that might be a whole thing. Okay, cool. Jerry writes, I will be configuring OBS Studio this weekend to be something similar to Streamlabs. Yep, so Streamlabs has a whole bunch of different products. Their Streamlabs desktop is basically built on OBS code, so they forked that some time ago, and it was kind of an option to make that a little bit easier. But it's definitely worth checking out. And Jerry writes, i.e. podcast recording. Yes, which would be really useful for you, I'm sure. So I guess, and I it's funny, I keep telling people, like, don't run out and upgrade straight away, but I've had so few problems just hitting that upgrade button that I'm really tempted just to do it with my main setup. And there's a really good chance I probably will do that over the weekend, and we'll just see how we go. The great thing about this, though, is I've created this new portable version. I've installed the plugins that I need to use, and I've only done one so far, and I'm not going to actually show you it because it'll probably want to grab my camera in the second version of OBS, and that potentially could be a problem. But essentially, what you can do with your scene collections is if you build something, and this is a really useful thing to do for a whole bunch of reasons. One, just at pure backups, because if you spent any time working on something, you want a copy of it. Oh, Jerry just wrote, sorry, I meant StreamYard. Yeah. So, I mean, that's definitely a thing. And I kind of need to, yeah. That's a whole other project, actually, Jerry, because what I have done in the past is used Video Ninja, and I have my scene collections and my Move plugin, and it's a whole thing. And I wanted to find a way to package that up really neatly so, you know, the average person can use that. And I think what is kind of looking promising is Elgato have their Marketplace Connect. And I can potentially sort of bundle all the scene collection, all the dependencies together and potentially share that with people. But I think I also need to pair it with some Stream Deck buttons. That's something I need to do. But yes, that's potentially a thing. So, and Reluctant Creators says doing it as you speak, just downloading 3 plugins for version 32. And that's the thing, anecdotally, it does sound like some of the plugins have broken with this upgrade. And again, I spoke about it last week, but check out the forums, just check out the plugin pages. They'll give you some clues as to how this works. But I just want to say that the scene collection is really cool because we can actually export these. So we want to export these to back them up. We want to, if you've got multiple computers in your life, and I'm sure a lot of us do, go and get OBS on those other computers and import your scene collections over there just as a backup, just in case something changes. Put this on your cloud storage. So again, if you lose anything, that's all there and ready to go. But essentially all we need to do is go export. We give it a name, it creates a JSON file. It's probably not the best place for me to save this, but just as an example, I'm going to do it here. And then if I go import, I can just find that file again. And this could be on a different computer. In this case, I'm going to actually change the name. So I'll say Samproof 2, and I'll import that. And now that scene collection is over here. One thing you may actually need to think about a little bit is just making sure that you have, like, you know, in this example, I'm referencing specific image files on my computer. If these things move, I'll probably need to go into my image slideshow and just find them again. So again, think about your scene collections, think about the plugins, and think about the, you know, actually where those sources are. But I guess, and it's not really my intention to build this out right now, but I do want to just mention this really briefly. So, 2 camera. All right, so I'm going to close out the vertical. This, I'm really inspired by Jerry's comments, and I don't necessarily want to do this. And to be honest, I don't think I'll have time to do this in a 30-minute time span. But let's just give it a go. So what I kind of encourage a lot of people to do, let's add a scene, and we'll say host. Let's add another scene, and it could be co-host, it could be guest, it just depends. And it doesn't really matter for our purposes as long as you know what these things mean. So what I would do for my host is I would come in and I would add my video capture device, I'd add in my audio source. Again, I'm not really going to do that right now because the only camera I've got connected here right now is in use, but I'm going to find a random image on my computer. And it'll probably be a goofy one of me because it's often how I roll. All right, let's just shove this in here. So this is just a picture of me. I'm gonna give this a background just because I want it to be really obvious that these things are different. I'm just gonna move that background underneath me. Oh, gotta save that first. Okay, cool. All right, so I'm just gonna move that underneath. So essentially, just imagine that this is the host. It's such a goofy photo, but it is what it is. And then we go to our co-host. So the thing that I would normally do here is I would actually use something like Video Ninja. Ping.gg is a paid option. And basically, it would give you some code that you can add into a browser source. And, you know, you'd literally paste the URL in that they give you. I'd probably make sure that this was 1920 by 1080. I would select this control audio via OBS. And I would go OK. And this would actually bring in my external guest. So if this person isn't physically in the same room as you, if they're coming to you via another computer. And again, I really need to do a whole show on Video Ninja because it is really, really cool, but it is also tricky because it's one of those things that if I show it live, I'll probably show you passwords and codes and things that I probably don't want to share on a live. So I might need to do that externally, but the thing that I kind of, and again, for our purposes, I'm going to go in. I'm going to see if I can find another image really quickly. I'll move this over here. I don't know if I've got a picture of Sam somewhere that maybe we could throw in. There we go. Picture of Sam. So again, I'll put Sam here and we can just pretend he's our external guest. So we've got these two things here. Again, the audio's in this scene. The host is in this scene. The great thing about this is that you can actually, like if you're using the Source Record plugin, I can go to Filters and I can say, hey, record this scene separately. Source Record, that's what I'm looking for. And I can go in and just say, record me talking, record Sam talking as their own individual files. And that way, if I do want to do some really granular editing later on, I can, and I don't have the audio in the same place. Again, it's getting back to that thing I mentioned earlier, which was like the different audio tracks. So again, we'd put everything on track 1 because that's what the stream wants to hear, or the whole video wants to hear. And then I'd sort of decide maybe I want to be on track 2 only and Sam can be on track 3 only, and that'll give us a few options. Hello, you should check in with the comments. I'm getting a little excited. Hello, Stefan. So Stefan wrote, I missed the start when I updated OBS. Every scene stopped working, but when I updated the Stream Deck, it came back except the vertical. Yeah, so the thing I'm hearing is that the vertical can potentially be a little bit of a problem. And, you know, I don't know if I have a weird, I don't think we can back up audio vertical scenes. I'm not really sure about that. That would be something that would definitely be worth asking Atom about. But yeah, I think Sam did that too, and he had a similar problem. So again, just keep in mind that if that is something that you're doing, you just want to be a bit mindful of that. But essentially, once I've got these, I've got my host and my guest, and potentially we can do this a number of different times. Again, the reality of that is that you kind of need to be mindful of everybody's internet connections. But if I've got a main scene, I want to bring my host and my guest in together. So I can go in and add these scenes, and we call this a nested scene. So I can go to add the source, I can go to the scene, and I just pick my host. And I probably want to resize that. And I would add in another scene, which is my guest. Or my co-host, whatever, however I've done that. So we'd have those things potentially side by side. And this is the point at which I would probably get really granular and go into the transform options and go to edit transform and say, okay, I know this is 1920. I think I really shouldn't do math on a live stream. But I think, so 1080 would be 540. Although I'm adjusting the position, I want to do the size, so I go 540. Hoping those two things are linked. I guess we'll find out in a second. Doesn't look like they were. Look, I'm not too proud to get a calculator up on screen and do the math, so let's just do that. And that's the thing. The thing I've set up for myself is full of math that I don't remember. So 1920. Why is the calculator not working? So divided by 2 is 960. 540 divided by 2 is 270. So if I go 960 by 5, 270. Maybe I've got those around the wrong way. 270, 960. Nope. I've already forgotten what the numbers are, and normally this would give me some... Oh, okay. I'm in the standard one. There we go. So 960 by 270. Oh. So, sorry. So it's 1080 divided by 2, which is 540. Okay. So 540, 960. So that would give us sort of perfectly half of the screen. And I would go in and do that for me as well. And again, like you could just eyeball this if you wanted to, but I'm a bit finicky that way. So I think we said, what did we say? We said 960. And you've got all these options. We can sort of line these things up side by side. The thing that I really love is the Move plugin. So if I go into the Move plugin and you kind of want to add these filters to the scene itself. So if I right click on the scene and I go to filters and I click at this and I want to do, I think it's Move Action. It's been a little while since I've done this, but let's find out together. No, it's not Move Action. It must be one of the other ones. So it's probably Move Source, maybe? Or Move it. Okay, yep, cool. So here I can say I want to move the host. And what I can do is and again, I would do this with math. I would actually go and create a spreadsheet and do this properly. But to give you a sense of this, I can just sort of make this. In fact, what I would do is I would go transform. I would go fit to screen. I would crop this in a little bit on both sides. And again, it's a little hard with that in the way, so I'll move that out of the way. So I would do that. I would move that side by side. And basically what I want to do is once I've made those changes, I say get transform. And then I can sort of say, once you've done that, move on to the next one. So I'd say, this is kind of complicated to explain in real time, but essentially what I do is I would say, I would probably call this close up side by side 001. And I would duplicate this. And this time I kind of want to do this with the co-host. And again, I do that same thing. I'm not even, maybe I will. So I'm just going to go fit to screen. I'm going to crop that in. Oops, make sure I'm actually on Sam in this example. Drag that in. And again, I would definitely do this with actual math rather than just eyeballing it, because you can see I haven't done it properly. But essentially what we do is we say we get the transform. And I go up to this first one and I say once that's happened, and I can do this as a simultaneous move or as a next move. So I can go simultaneous move for the first one would be the second one. And again, if I just reset those, just reset. Again, you won't see them side by side here. But the thing about this is now if I go back to my filters, which I guess I've closed. So again, the filters are over here. Is that if I actually turn the filter on, I've obviously done that wrong because it didn't move both of us. Simultaneous move. I mean, it kind of did. I probably stuffed that up somewhere because it's moved us off screen. So I probably need to think about how I'm doing that. But you can essentially rearrange these things. And again, you probably need to go back to some of the old video and live streaming shows to see it. Like, it's literally just some buttons on my Stream Deck where I press them and I go side by side or zoom in or zoom out and different things like that. So again, that's probably worth doing an entire show on, but when I'm a little bit more organized and I know all my math. Let's just check. In fact, let's just go back here. Let me just check in with the chat because there's a whole bunch of stuff happening. So Stefan writes, when recording a show with a guest, it will be heavy, take a lot of memory space. Any tips, cloud or anything? again, I'm kind of fortunate in the sense that I bought a very spec'd up computer, so it's not a problem I personally have. But again, there's definitely a trade-off there, and I guess, you know, think about how high quality you want to be recording, and especially if you've got a guest coming in from Video Ninja, I don't think there's any, like, there's probably no point getting anything larger than 1920 by 1080 unless you have an extremely good internet connection on both sides and you have lots of disk space and you have like the graphics card and all the things ready to go. So those are often trade-offs you need to consider. And I guess the thing that Sam and I actually used to do was that we would record our own ends of this conversation, even when we were using like StreamYard or Restream Studio. And you know, all you need to do there is put yourself into the frame. So, you know, again, I won't actually do it, but essentially all I was doing is going to add the video capture source, selecting my camera, adding in my audio, probably muting the audio that comes in off my camera because that would sound awful and I want you to hear the microphone rather than that. And then I would just go start recording, but I'd have the start virtual camera on, and the virtual camera would be the thing that actually goes to StreamYard or Restream Studio or Zoom or whatever. And that way, that's actually a really useful way of just having a backup of your side of a meeting. And sometimes that might be for legal reasons. Sometimes that might be because you're sharing some interesting content and you just want to repurpose that and throw it up on YouTube or social media later on. Those are definitely things that you can potentially do. But yeah, it really does depend on your computer and the resources it has. And I'd probably recommend that you actually just do some test recordings and see how it works. The other thing I should say about that recording your own side of the conversation, I was really bad at actually stopping that recording. And there were a few weeks where I did the show, I left, and 7 hours later, I remembered I was still recording. So that potentially can be a huge problem. All right. Let's go back into the chat. So, Nintendo Lover says, "Can I ask you a question? Are you guys having OBS delay?" Okay, so, again, there's a few different factors that might be at play here, and it could be that maybe you're trying to do too much with your internet connection or your computer. So, if you are experiencing a delay, it's definitely worth checking out those things. I would definitely go and do a speed test because, and this is kind of heartbreaking, but sometimes some people just don't have they just don't have the bandwidth to do live. And I'd love to tell you that anybody can do live, but it doesn't always work that way. So again, I'm sure the people in Europe will probably be horrified by, and now I've got the like and subscribe thing popping up all the time, but let me just get rid of that and get rid of that. So if we do a speed test, it's going to ping, it's going to tell me my download speed and my upload speed. Again, in some ways, and I realize it's behind my head, so let me just move it up a little bit. It's happening in real time. All right, so there we go. 44.7 seems to be my download speed at the moment. And again, this potentially will depend on the time of day, but also the upload speed. And so 13.9, it's not much in the scheme of things. And certainly people in other parts of the world have much better internet access than I do here in Australia. But 13.9 seems to be okay for me. So check that. I guess when you talk about OBS delay, are we talking about it reaching the destination? So there's always going to be a bit of delay between what you say and it actually hitting YouTube or Twitch. Okay, so specifically my camera takes a few seconds to open. So, all right. So if we were, I'm not really sure, actually. That's an interesting question. So like, again, I can't really demonstrate too much of this simply because I'm using the only camera I've got available to me, but I might cheat a little bit. We might use the virtual camera out of this version of OBS. I'm hoping it won't crash. All right, so like what you would do to add your camera is essentially go and add the source, and we want our video capture device. Give it a name. It's always a good idea if you name your sources. That can be really helpful. Call this one camera. Again, it wants to use the cam link. I can't do that right now, so I'm going to pretend a little bit with the virtual camera out of the other version of OBS. Again, think about you know, how are you connect, like what kind of camera do you have first of all, and how are you physically connecting it to your computer? Because even some webcams, they might need a better quality USB connection. So if you do have different USB ports on your computer, maybe take it out of the one you're using right now, plug it into a different one, see if that helps. It may help, it may not. But what you really want to see is, and just do some local recording. So you can go into the settings and certainly adjust the video options here if you want to, but just do some recordings and see, because I guess in terms of this delay, is it a delay between, you know, OBS and YouTube or Twitch, or is it a delay between maybe you speaking and you know, the audio and the video? There are a few things to check out. I'm not really sure without seeing that one as to exactly how that would work. But there are a few things to check out. I guess while I'm in here, I just want to talk about some of my favorite plugins, because we've got a couple of minutes left to go, but if you've got other questions, let me know in the chat. My favorite, probably by far my favorite plugin. I shouldn't say that. I've got lots of favorite plugins, but one of my favorites is actually the advanced mask, which I really love. So if you want to put yourself in a corner with a particular shape, you can definitely do that here, and you can sort of see that's already happening behind me. But this will actually give us a whole bunch of different shapes that we can play with. I can make that a circle. I never seem to be perfectly centered in the frame, so what I want to do is sort of manually override that. I can adjust the radius, so I can make it bigger or smaller. And again, potentially that's a property you could animate with the Move plugin. We can zoom in or out as well, which is kind of weird. There is a feathering option too. So if I want to make that edge a little bit smoother, that's something I can definitely do. And we have all kinds of different shapes, ellipse, polygon, star, it's a little weird in this context, a heart, and a squircle, which is a combination of a square and a circle, in case that wasn't completely obvious. So I might even make that a little bit bigger. And especially if you want to do sort of a picture-in-picture thing, that's often a really cool one to play with. All right, so I hope that's been useful. Again, I realize the thing that I kind of alluded to, Jerry, is sort of building out that scene where we have people side by side and potentially with the Move plugin, the ability to rearrange those things. And also even bringing in the chat via Ninja Chat, because again, depending on where you're streaming to and what that looks like, those comments might pop into to OBS, or you might need to do a little bit to get them to work. So those are a couple of things to keep in mind. Obviously, there's a lot going on with OBS, and I will hopefully be back with more content along these lines in the future. So if you do have specific questions you want me to answer or things you want me to look at, definitely let me know. But I might leave it here for this week. Thank you so much for being here. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'm a little scared to try and press that button again. I'm going to have to go in and figure out what's going on with that. But anyway, it's fine. Have a great week. Have a great weekend when you get there. And I'll talk to you very, very soon.